Welcome in, everyone. Happy Tuesday. We are here and we have quite the show today. Welcome in. Grab your lunch. It's lunchtime. I still haven't had a thing to eat, but hey, we're here. Who's in the chat? We have Tanya Weddemire in the chat. Hi, Tanya. What a special guest to have. Jordan Lee. What's going on, Jordan? Slick the Goat. Hello, hello, hello. Guys, as you guys come into the chat, make sure you are liking the video, subscribing. If you guys love to learn about the nuances of the art world and engage in conversations like this, make sure you're liking and subscribing. That does so much for the channel, so much for YouTube to know that we are a community that likes to engage in conversations like this. So it is fair season. And I think if you've been here, what you've learned is fair season is all year long. It's from January all the way to December. Nothing changes. It's always fair season. And right now, the season that we're going to go into is Expo Chicago. It opens a week from today. I'm going to be in Chicago. Y'all let me know in the chat who's going to be in Chicago. Art Basel Hong Kong just wrapped and results are in. And also today we have O'Neil Scott joining me live, an artist who is about to actually walk into Expo Chicago with Tanya Weddemire, who is in the chat. She's in the chat. Everyone say hello to Tanya. Everyone say hello to O'Neil Scott. We have a lot to cover. So here's what we're doing today. We're breaking down how art fairs actually work for those of you guys who just may not know. We're talking about Expo Chicago, a little bit of intel, how it's 1 week out from today. And we're going to also have a live conversation with O'Neil Scott, which I'm really, really, really excited about. I love his work, and I know you guys do as well. So we're going to be able to dig a little bit deeper into who he is, how he got to where he is, his experience going into fairs like Expo or like Scope he did in December. We're going to also talk about Art Basel Hong Kong, the results and what they mean. And yeah, so what is an art fair? Let's talk about it. What is an art fair actually? Well, it's a market event. It's happening in the market, right? All throughout the year, we have many different fairs, many different levels of fairs. We have Art Basel, we have Frieze, we have the Armory. We have so many different fairs. We have our top fairs. We have our boutique fairs. We have so many different fairs going on throughout the year. And they sit alongside gallery shows. They sit alongside auctions. But these fairs are giving us a really good idea of what's actually going on in the market. It tells us publicly what's going on in the market. Lots of times we get the results after the fair. So just like Hong Kong, in Hong Kong, everything that sold, not everything, but a lot of things that sold were publicly reported. We're going to be able to talk about those things today. So it's another aspect of what is the market doing? What does the market actually look like? And how is that showing up at the fair? Galleries are paying to be there. Collectors come to buy. Artists are there to get visibility, to get institutional backing. The energy is fast. The stakes are incredibly real at fairs. And an art fair is essentially this temporary marketplace where galleries from all around the world rent booth space in one building and bring the best work. It runs for a few days. Collectors and institutions are flying in from all over the world, from everywhere, and a massive amount of buying and relationship building is happening in a very short window. If you guys know anything about fair weeks, typically, just like we left LA a few weeks ago, there was LA Fair Week or LA Art Week. And the first few days were your VIP days. Your first few days are always your VIP days. Right after your VIP days, you have your public days. 3 to 5 days is all we have, a very short window. So you can think about it like a trade show, but a little bit more elevated, right? The galleries are your vendors, the collectors are your buyers. They're there to acquire the work. And the artists have, I don't want to say product because you know how we feel about that word when it comes to artists, but the artists have the goods. The artists have what we are all there to see. That's why we're there, to see the artwork. Now, I want you guys to note, there are many, 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 many different levels of art fairs. You have your art fairs like Art Basel. You have Frieze, which Expo Chicago it's a little smaller than those fairs, but still is in the Frieze portfolio. Did you guys know that actually? That Expo Chicago was acquired by Frieze, I believe maybe 2 years ago, maybe last year. So Expo Chicago used to be its own entity, and now it's a part of the Freeze portfolio. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat. I'm seeing a few things come through. O'Neill and Tanya, fires. Yes. Very excited for this conversation. So Freeze is, they acquired Expo Chicago. But here's what's actually happening on the fair floor. Galleries are not just coming in and just hoping for good things. They're there to sell. They're there to meet new collectors. They're there to strengthen relationships with existing ones and to signal to the market that their artists are worth paying attention to. They're there to tell you, hey, this is the artist that we brought in. This is the artist that we're representing. This is the artist that I'm putting my money into to invest in. And I believe in their story. I believe in their why. I believe in the way that they're creating work so much that I believe you should also be invested in. They are telling you that this is the artist that I believe in. Every booth is a business decision. You guys know we're always going to talk the real, right? Every booth is a business decision. Yes, it's a curatorial decision, but it's also a business decision. Fairs cost a lot to go into for these galleries. So they're not just bringing willy-nilly artists into the fair. They're making decisions on what artists are going to resonate with the collectors the most. And collectors many times are not just browsing. The serious collectors, the ones that go to all the fairs, they're coming with a list, they're coming with a budget, they're coming with relationships, and if they don't have relationships, they're coming to build relationships. It is one of the only places in the entire art world that you can go and meet the galleries and have conversations with the galleries, all from all over the world, and build relationships also with artists and other collectors and institutions already in a place where galleries have built trust, right? So the best pieces are often sometimes spoken for before the door is open, but it's not to say that when you go to these fairs, you're not going to get what you're actually looking for. Okay, so now that we know, now that we have a grounding in what an art fair actually is, and for the people who've never been, fairs can feel overwhelming and they can feel to an extent pretty exclusive, but we could say that that's by design. We could say that, but when I go to fairs, typically I feel very invited. I mean, it depends on the way you move through a fair. It depends on who you engage in conversations with. It depends on the booths that you engage. There have been times where definitely you go and you speak with galleries and they kind of shun you a little bit, but there's a way to navigate these fairs. And when you go in with a plan, you go in knowing what artists you want to ask about, you want to inquire about. If you go to the fair website, guys, there's always a list of galleries. And those galleries typically list the artists that they're going to be bringing with them to the fair. So there is a way for you to preview what artists and what galleries are going to actually be at the fair. And when you do that, you have a better way of attending the fair. You have a plan. You have a better way of going into this fair saying, I'm going to talk to this person. I'm curious about this artist, but also leaving yourself open and not being so rigid about, I'm just going to go here. And allow yourself to be open and explore, but also have a bit of a plan. Once you understand the structure, you can really move through a fair with intention instead of just wandering around and feeling like an outsider. The difference between a fair and a gallery show, to just kind of bring it, to some sense, is a gallery volume and speed. Let's just say that volume, speed, and access, right? You have all these galleries from all around the world in one space. That gives you a certain level of access. That gives you access to say hello. Some of these galleries that I have relationships with, I met them at fairs, and I don't know that I would have met them in any other capacity. But what I do know is when I go to the fair, there will be a representative at the booth that understands what they're talking about, hopefully, because I've definitely run into the opposite. But there will be a representative there to talk to you about the artists that you're interested in. Okay, a fair is opposite of galleries. It's all of these thousands of works under one roof. Okay, collectors. I'm gonna key in on this, guys, especially for my artists, because if you're looking for some networking, one of the best places one of the best places to be standing next to someone, looking at the same artwork and love the same artwork and engage with that person over something that both of you guys love. And then you turn to them and say, what's your name? That's how simple it is. And you have no idea who that person could be. That person has no idea who you are. And those are some of the most pivotal moments in being able to be face to face with the people that are interested in the same things that you're interested in. So I'm going to show you guys here, because I do want you all to be able to know exactly what I'm talking about when you go to these fair websites, and you can see here who the exhibitors are. So if you go to Expo Chicago is going to list all of the galleries that are involved in the fair. I believe this year they have 130 galleries, down from about 170. They're choosing to be a more curated gallery. They're choosing to be a little bit more intentional on the galleries that they are partnering with within this fair. But if you go down here and you go to Tanya Weddemire, you'll see here that she has and is bringing O'Neill Scott with her. That's how simple it is to know what galleries are bringing what artists. Just go to the website. And if you want to really explore and go deeper, spend some time. It might take a few days. It might just take you maybe an hour. Just click on the galleries, look at the artists that they're bringing, and then develop a plan. What galleries do I want to engage with? What artists do I want to engage with? Develop some questions before you actually get to the fair. That's how collectors are moving through a fair versus how most people are actually showing up. Overwhelmed, super reactive, buying on impulse, are not prepared to acquire at all. What it means when a gallery takes an artist to a fair, that gallery is investing in real money into that artist's visibility. That is a deliberate signal. So at these fairs, that's where you're going to go, and you're going to be able to say, okay, this is the artist that this gallery is investing their time into. And when you go to that website, you have an entire list of artists that you immediately know that a gallery is investing their time, energy, and money into. It's a cheat. It's a total cheat to know what gallery believes in what artist. So I really, really, really encourage you guys to do that. Speaking of galleries, we touched on Tanya Weddemire. I do want to let you guys know that this Thursday coming up, we will have Tanya Weddemire. Her and I had a beautiful conversation that's going to be dropping on Thursday at 10 a.m. And of course, you guys know she is bringing O'Neill Scott. So before we get into that, I do want to ground you guys in Expo Chicago, because it is back for the 13th edition. It will be live in Chicago, April 9th through the 12th. It's the 13th edition. And of course, like we talked about a little bit earlier, it is a part of Friez's global portfolio, okay? They have a global portfolio. The same organization that runs Art Basel's main competitor. So when you talk about Art Basel and Frieze, they are competitors. They are the main competitors of one another. Art Basel is a little bit bigger, but Frieze is a major competitor of Art Basel. So when I say Expo Chicago is a serious fair, I mean it has serious institutional backing behind it. Now, this year is interesting because it is the first edition under a new director. I'm going to say her first name. I'm not going to say her last name, okay? Kate something else. It starts with the S. And the fair is smaller. It's down from 170 galleries, like I said, to about 130. And some people saw the headline and they got a little nervous about it. They got a little nervous about the fair downsizing, but I actually think it's a great thing. I actually love when fairs downsize a little bit, because it allows the viewer, the collector, the engager to go and just have an easier time navigating. I mean, it can get incredibly overwhelming when you're there and it's so much noise. The galleries that are there, they're there for a reason. And so that's why it's important to see someone like Tanya Weddemire and someone like O'Neill Scott showing at Expo Chicago. When you think about the fact that they cut from 170 to 130, that means they were being extra intentional extra strategic and extra careful about the galleries and the artists that they wanted to partner with. So keep that in mind this year. Now, there's a special section this year called Gathering of Waters. And I want you to pay attention to this one because it's exploring landscape and migration and the African, Latin American, and Caribbean diasporas. And I'm going to come back to this because O'Neill joins me because his work sits right inside that conversation. So keep that in your back pocket. Also worth noting, Expo has an expanded partnership with the Obama Presidential Center this year, okay? So that is really also very important to know because Chicago is already this cultural city. A lot of people call it the small New York. And if you've ever been to Chicago, I don't know anyone that doesn't love Chicago. So let's just start there. I love Chicago. But Chicago is not, and I don't think that it ever has, but right now it's not really sitting in quietly in the Midwest anymore. The city is actively positioning itself as an international cultural destination, and the fair is a part of that strategy. So, we don't have to go into the strategy of a city and why a city brings a fair or why a fair might go into a city or expand in a particular city. But just know if you're going, just do your research before you walk in, know which galleries are showing, and set a real budget. If you don't have a budget, just know what you want to look at, know what you want to deeply ask questions about. Just don't show up to browse. I mean, it's okay to show up to browse. I show up to browse all the time, but have a little bit of intention. If you're an artist watching, understand what it means that O'Neill is there. Understand what that means. Understand what that takes. His gallery looked at their budget and looked at their roster also, and decided to spend real time, real investment there. Speaking of galleries, speaking of O'Neill Scott again is showing at Expo with Tanya Weddemire, and I am gonna bring O'Neill in right now. O'Neill, how you doing?
Good. How are you? Can you hear me?
I'm doing amazing, man. You're born in Jamaica, right?
Yes. Spanish Town,
Raised in
Jamaica.
raised in Camden, New Jersey,
Yes. Camden, New Jersey, right outside of Philadelphia.
right outside of Philadelphia. Football scholarship to where?
Syracuse.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Look, we have to bring it up because we got to tell the people
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
story. You dropped all your art classes because they conflicted with practice. I've heard that story so many times from friends of mine and buddies of mine that
hmm
played football in college and they couldn't do what they wanted to do because they had to do what they had to do. It was a scholarship first. You graduated with a degree in information technology. You
Yep.
got your MBA from the University of Delaware. And
Yep.
I'm saying all of that because you came back to painting
Yes.
and you're self taught.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you can say that. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
And from the looks of it, it looks like your old master's influence, large scale figurative work, exploring Black identity, memory, and
yeah.
migration.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. I think self-taught is interesting though because there's always a little bit of a gray line there. I think because I've taken workshops at Studio Incominati in Philly, and I've taken workshops with PAFA with some artists that I really like, and I've adopted some of their practices. And then also I took all my foundation classes at Syracuse, right? So it's really interesting when you say self-taught because it's like, is it because you don't have the um, I would say like fine art degree, and that's the only reason you say it, or is it because you never actually trained or were taught with someone? So I will say this:
Yeah.
I was trained and I did learn with a few artists that I admire. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point because I'm sure so many artists that have that self-titled
hmm
title have some type of training in some sense, like maybe like you said, took a class or have some type of grounding. But yeah, I think that that actually does come from the idea that your degree didn't sit.
hmm
You don't have your BFA or your
Yep.
MFA, but there you make
Exactly.
a
Yep.
yeah, you make a good point there. There's actually many different ways to be trained in something.
Yes.
Yeah. So now you're showing at major fairs through Tanya Weddemire Gallery. You have an upcoming show at the
hmm
National Gallery of Jamaica. and also the Morris Museum of Art, your path was not linear. So, what exactly made you come back to painting?
Mm, I think for me, there was just always something missing. I went to school. That's exactly what I went to school for. I went to school, for art to be a painting major. And at the time, I was devastated when I realized I couldn't really pursue that or make it work.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I always felt like I could come back to it. So for me, I think it just never left. I was always drawing like the whole time.
Mm.
But it kind of took me some time to get brave enough to say, hey, I'm going to create this body of work and actually pursue it. Um, and once I decided to do that, I was kind of all in. So it's one of those things where you kind of have to make up your mind and decide like, hey, you're going to drop everything and you're going to actually dive in feet first on this and see what happens.
So tell us a little bit about your work. When I look at it in particular, I see in the subject, I see these dichotomies, and it seems to be this theme of colliding identities or these intersecting worlds, these
Mm-hmm.
clashes. What is the core anchor in all of your work?
Yeah. So if you look at the work, you would probably think, at least for me, the core anchor of the work is um is kind of like the way we think as humans. A lot of times when we think about different things, whether it's memories or our current situation or whatever's going on in our mind, there's this interconnection of other images, other visual elements that were pulled in to create this narrative around whatever we're deciding we're going to think about or we're going to reflect on at that time. So within the work, you can kind of see fragmentation and uh, kind of like an overall nuance of like, okay, I'm pulling in these other fragmented images and kind of like creating a narrative around that. That's usually how we think as humans. There's never really one full-on thought of something. Um, Whether I think I'm okay, I'm gonna like get a glass of water. Like even getting a glass of water has different um, uh, images and experiences that you've pull on to like say, hey, I'm gonna go get this glass of water. All of those are kind of like pulled together. So so creating this fragmentation to kind of like show the truth of how like humans think. That it's not always clear cut, and that I think creates a narrative around the work.
Mm. I like that. It kind of sounds like someone who's a little ADD, just kind of all over the place, which I think we're all on some level of spectrum of having these thoughts, right? And like you said, that's a good picture you painted. Going to get a glass of water. I mean, if I were to go get a glass of water right now, that would take a level of many different actions. And so is that what you're looking at? Like the idea that I have to traverse down my stairs and literally go into my kitchen and put in all of those images together?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that's part of it. Also, any action that you did previously around that kind of like makes up that memory as well. Um, if I talk about like, hey, I played football at Syracuse, like so many other images come into my mind other than me playing football at Syracuse. A lot of times they're related and interconnected with that one singular image, uh, but in turn, all of those different memories and images and thoughts make up me playing football at Syracuse. So
Mm,
I think that's kind of like how we think as humans.
nothing's linear.
No,
Yeah. I'm curious about your process. How do you approach your practice?
um, it's approached. Sorry, one second. Um, it's it varies. I think the approach. It depends on what I'm working on at the time, but it's rooted in old masters. So that type of I guess technical skill base, where the paints are built up in layers and things like that. But the I think the most important part of the work is the concept and the conceptual idea around it, right? Um, uh, and for me, it usually relies on memories, thoughts, and I try to like continue to lean back towards my experiences and who I am, and that's usually where the work gets grounded at.
Mm.
How do I think day to day? How do I want to feel? How do I want the world to see me or to see others? Those are different things that pop into my mind that allows me to create, you know, different works, and it kind of evolves from that. So it's really what's going on in the world now, and what are my experiences, and what have I experienced.
Are you ever uncovering memories that maybe you didn't remember or
Oh,
until you
absolutely.
yeah. Can you give us an
Absolutely. I
example of
mean,
that? Yeah.
like memories are interesting because
Mm-hmm.
we do uncover memories while we're working on stuff, but then also we realize like a lot of those memories weren't actually real memories. They're memories that
Mm.
we've made up. Um, so I've noticed that as well. Just referring back to some situations that I've had in my youth. Speaking with friends or speaking with family, they were kind of like, "Wait, no, this is kind of how that situation went," or "You were never there, you were over here," and
Mm.
so a lot of times we make up a lot of our memories, which we don't realize, and in turn, those memories make us who we are today. So, I mean, a lot of the things we think back on is kind of fabricated by our own minds.
Mm. That makes me have a completely different approach to looking at your work. I mean, it makes me think about the idea of living dimensionally, like not just living in this one dimension, but having multiple variations of ourselves that have experienced a multitude of things. I watch a lot of sci-fi, so maybe that's
Yeah, me too.
okay. Well, that makes sense. Is that where your mind goes? Do you typically think about yourself as living maybe in multiple dimensions or having multiple experiences?
um, Not necessarily multiple dimensions, but I think like none of us are really one thing or one person. A lot of times I think of it as like an overall character arc, right? I mean, we have good sides, we have bad sides, we have, my experience at Syracuse almost feels like a different person compared to
Mm-hmm.
like now and being in the art world. Um, and I know a lot of us have those same experiences where we're very layered, we're very diverse as people, and none of us are really one thing. Um, and we have good and bad thoughts.
Mm.
I did a show at the University of Maine at their museum, and it was called Journey to Distant Memories. And what I told people about that show is that, you know, um, depending on who you are and how you see yourself, when you stand in front of the work, is going to determine whether or not you see it as a positive painting or a negative painting. And the works were purposefully created that way, where where you can look at it and feel uplifted with it if you think of yourself and you've been through these certain experiences that's around that image within the work that make you feel that way, and then you can sit in front of it and be, feel sad or feel
Yeah.
upset, and those other emotions as well, depending on your own experiences.
Yeah. So we have one of the works on screen that's going to be shown at Expo. Could you walk us through this work just a little bit? Portmore.
Oh, which one is it? Because
Portmore.
Portmore. Okay. Yeah, Portmore is one of the works that kind of like revert back to a story I heard from my aunt and my mother about living in Jamaica on Portmore, that coast. A lot of these works kind of uh, derived from the hurricane that was happening,
Mm.
and kind of like us continuing on as people after the hurricane, even though a
Mm.
lot of heritage was lost, um, a lot of uh, what we think as like culture winds up being wiped away from hurricanes.
Mm.
Uh, but we still have to like continue on and basically rebuild that portion of it. So Portmore is that, and it's a very fragmented painting because of not just the impact of the hurricane and how that kind of like um, devastated things, but it's also kind of the way we think about rebuilding and being able to kind of piece things back together. So you'll see a narrative around that within the work. And it's one of those things where, depending on your experience, if you look at the painting, you could have different emotions.
Have you lived through a hurricane in any of your experiences?
Um, no, but I did visit when the country was kind of like under panic for Hurricane
Mm-hmm.
Gilbert. After Hurricane Gilbert, it was Hurricane Andrew, and they were kind of like panicking. And I kind of saw that panic, but I was very young.
Yeah, I've lived through many hurricanes.
Oh,
Just
I'm sorry,
living.
down there. Wow.
Yeah, so I definitely resonate. I grew up in Texas on the border of Texas and Louisiana, and it's just so many hurricanes that we've experienced just from childhood to adulthood. And you watch so many people lose everything,
Yes.
including their lives. And it is, especially for something to happen like that over and over and over, and knowing that you go into it seasonally
Hmm.
and you never know what that rebuild is going to actually take. Or if next year you're going to have to rebuild what you just rebuilt. It's
Yeah.
a cyclical feeling, and
Yeah.
it's so I definitely can resonate with what Jamaica just went through. We've gone through it several times.
Yeah.
What is it, and how is it having work that's so vulnerable and that's so reflective, having it on the fair walls, that is typically a commerce space? How does that
Mm.
feel, to have your work in those arenas?
I think it's interesting. I think making vulnerable work takes a lot of courage. And when I reflect back on kind of like a lot of my earlier work, the ones that were vulnerable or very vulnerable and like reflected on who I uh, was always a lot more difficult to show publicly. Um, but I've since then, I've kind of like told myself like everything I do and everything I work on moving forward is going to be reflective of who I am as a person, and regardless of how vulnerable that is, and it allows me to kind of like work through a lot of that vulnerability, right? Work through a lot of what that means, and what I realize is a lot of people have have gone through or have similar experiences or just kind of understand where the work is coming from, and that in turn like feels more authentic. It kind of like reaches them a lot better. So um, so it's just something I think I've done and I'm always gonna do. I don't know if I could like sit here and say uh, I would ever put anything up um, that's not genuinely who I am,
Yeah,
and genuinely reflects my thoughts and how I see the world. So
yeah.
yeah, so a lot of the work is kind of like that. It's vulnerable.
What do you want someone to feel when they stop at your booth and they see your work? What type of feeling are you trying to evoke?
Um, I want them to honestly like I don't know if I'm telling them how to feel when they
Mm-hmm.
stop at the booth. I think it's really more of self-reflection, them kind of putting themselves in the situations that the painting kind of like relays. But really, I want them to feel whatever emotions they want to feel. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that, like I said, the works are very aspirational. They're about the aftermath of the hurricane and like people kind of like growing back and rebuilding and like community coming together to get that done.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I want them to feel um, just basically however the painting makes them feel, however it relates to them, whether that's joy, whether that's a reflection, whether it's anger, whatever they want to feel. The key is that they actually feel something. And I think the worst thing you can do is see artwork that doesn't really make you feel anything.
Yeah.
And that's the work that you really. I think the artist almost failed if you see
Mm.
work that doesn't make you feel anything.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that's what it does. It kind of allows them to feel something. um a lot of the work being figurative, I think and just naturalistic and um, imagery, it kind of like already has a leg up on that because we put ourselves in similar situations when there's an image in the work, right? So I think you know that aspect of it is innately human. Like you're going to feel something because of the imagery in it. Now, where that takes you is really up to you and your experiences, right?
Mm-hmm. Why is it important to know who O'Neil Scott is right now in 2026?
Oh man. Uh, I think it's important because, well, I mean, it depends on who you are, right? I mean, if you're looking to see something as authentic as possible,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the work I I do is not really. I mean, and Tanya and I talked about this. It's not that commercial. It's not very sellable. It's kind of like um, it's work that I think is meant to tell a story, is meant to reflect a place and time. It's meant to be honest, it's meant to be in a museum or seen publicly, right? Um, and it's great that a lot of the works do end up in collectors' homes, but that's the goal. Like the goal is to have it reflect our times and have it reflect kind of who I am as a person and how I view the world. Uh, and I think that is going to probably continuously take me to wherever I want to go if I stay true to that. So, I mean, but I don't know how how important it is to know me.
Well, I think it's important. I think the work is sellable.
Thank you, thank you.
I think it is. I think, it becomes anything. What makes it sellable is the fact that it is emotional, right? The fact that it is resonating with someone, that it is someone's story, that someone can look at it in their home because they acquired it
Mhm.
and know that they invested into someone's story and they invested into something that is emotionally rigorous, and intellectually rigorous. And to me, those are the things that are worth acquiring. Those are the things worth collecting, if you must, and to live with. So
Mhm.
I'm going to challenge you on that. I think that it is sellable. And then also, museums have to buy it. They have to
Yeah,
acquire it.
yeah, yeah, that's
So,
true.
that cycle continues. We have a comment. So, this current work centers on the resilience. Let's actually put the current work on screen because since we're going to talk about it there, I did want to talk about this one a little bit because it's so interesting. Um, but let's see. So, this here is also going to be showing, it is titled, I believe, We Will Rebuild.
Mm.
And so Tanya here has a comment. This current work centers on the resilience of Jamaica in the aftermath of Hurricane Melissa. While the storm brought devastation, these paintings focus on what follows, the decision to rebuild. Do you want to expound on this particular piece just a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So it's kind of you know a makeup of pretty much what you said, but it's really about us reflecting on everything that happened, and um, it's not just about just the hurricane alone, but it also works in parallel with us as humans and who we are. And you can kind of see that within the work how uh, the houses and the foliage and things like that are integrated within the person, and it's almost like rebuilding yourself and rebuilding your culture and who you are as a person, not just rebuilding your house or the landscape and stuff like that. So it works in parallel with that, and that's really what I wanted a lot of the works to do is for the viewer to kind of self-reflect on who they are and what are they building and where can they go, with
Mm-hmm.
that situation.
This is such a beautiful work. It feels so graceful, and it feels like just knowing, um, that these are rooted in a hurricane, or even if it is someone carrying some of the challenges that they might have in life. They're carrying it, and he's carrying it so gracefully. And whether it's about the hurricane or not, I feel the gracefulness in him carrying um, just the challenges that this person might be having on their shoulders and within them, and walking around with that, but still carrying that grace and having that grace. I really, really, really love this work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, O'Neill, thank you so much for joining us today. You guys, make sure you go and follow O'Neill at O'Neill Scott on
Yeah.
Instagram. Let me go ahead and put that up for you guys so y'all can see it. Tanya was definitely great in the chat at putting your Instagram in the chat. So, guys, you see that on the screen. Get to know O'Neill. He is an important artist to know in 2026. He's doing amazing, amazing work. It is emotionally resonant. It's beautiful. All of the work is graceful. It all carries a very specific grace. I have not seen it in person, but I will be in Chicago next
Okay,
week. So
okay.
yeah. So are you going to be there?
I'm planning on it.
Okay. Awesome. So you guys know who to check out. You heard it here. Go and check out O'Neill Scott at Tanya Weddemire's Gallery. What's the booth? I think we have the booth here. It is booth 416. Write that down. Put it
Yeah.
in your notes in your phone. Make sure you guys are visiting O'Neill and Tanya Weddemire, and make sure you let them know that you learned about it on Dear Glory. O'Neill, thanks again. I will talk with you soon, and hopefully I'll get a
Absolutely.
chance to see you in Chicago.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. It was wonderful being on here. I watch you all the time, so
Thank you.
you know,
Well, we'll talk soon. Look,
we'll
we
talk.
have to talk soon because we were all about the technology this
Yeah,
morning,
yeah,
trying to
yeah.
figure that out. We need a proper hello. Thank you so much. I'll talk soon. Bye bye.
All right, I'll talk to you. Bye.
Thank you guys for listening in on that. That was amazing, right? Isn't his work just so beautiful? I haven't seen it in person. Let me know in the chat, guys. Have you guys seen it in person? I haven't seen it in person, but I can only imagine how beautiful and how detailed it is on screen. You know, all work does not transfer and translate to an on screen experience, to understanding how powerful and how big it feels, and it is. But his work does that for me. And let me know if it does that for you, because it's definitely doing that for me. So I can't wait to see it in person and actually just get into it, you know? You know that feeling when you could just walk into the work and you just stand there and you're just looking at it and admiring how wonderful it is and how it makes you feel. And if it makes you feel something through this screen, I can only imagine how it's going to make you feel in person. So, guys, while we're here, we need to talk about what happened at Art Basel Hong Kong, because the results just came in, okay? The results just came in, and there are things in those numbers that we all need to know. We're never going to think that we don't need to know the numbers. We always need to know the numbers. I'm never going to be the person that gives you this fantasy, that dances with you in the rain and talks about the rainbows. This is an industry. This industry is economic. And if it wasn't economic, it wouldn't keep going. Even the philanthropy is economic. So we could talk about that. That's a whole nother story. Let's talk about what happened at Art Basel Hong Kong, one of the biggest fairs in the world, because the results dropped this week. And there are, okay, Art Basel Hong Kong is the largest art fair in Asia. Let's just say that. 240 galleries. We just talked about Chicago, right? We talked about Expo Chicago having 130 galleries. This has 110 galleries more. 240 galleries under one roof. Think about how incredibly big that is. Collectors, artists, institutions flying in from across Asia Pacific, from across the entire world, really. If you follow anyone in the art world that travels from place to place, I'm pretty sure you guys got a key in via someone's Instagram stories on what was actually going on at not Expo, but at Hong Kong, Art Basel Hong Kong. Look, people are coming in from Europe, the United States, all converging one building in Hong Kong for multiple days. It is not a regional fair at all. This is one of the most important weeks on the global art calendar, and it just wrapped. These results are literally super fresh, and we're gonna get into it. Okay, so this is via Artsy. I first want to just point out that they drew 91,500 visitors. 91,500. Think about how many people that is taking a look at all of the artwork. Actually, think about how many people that is in one building. It's a lot. And that's what these fairs do. They allow a number of people from all over the world to come in and look at the same art at the same exact time. That is incredible, incredible marketing. That's what it is. It is a marketing tool to show up in these spaces. And if you think about it from the business perspective, just know these are marketing dollars. These are dollars to acquire an audience, the audience that someone like Art Basel Hong Kong brings. And if we look at the artwork that's sold and you ground that in the type of folks that are showing up to these fairs, let's scroll down a little bit because we're going to get into some numbers. Let's get into some numbers. Okay. A 2002 painting by Marlene Dumas sold for $3.5 million. A 2019 painting by, I don't even know, Michael or Michelle Baramos for $1.1 million. A 1999 work on paper, sold by Yoshitimo Nara for $900,000. Are y'all seeing these numbers? That's what's happening. First of all, that's what's happening all in one building at one time. Millions and millions and millions of dollars. So when we go back to a few weeks ago, when we talked about the art market in that report, and we talk about this world being a $59 billion market, well, these are the numbers that we have to add up, right? We've added up a few different numbers over the past few months. And when we get to add in these millions of dollars and you add these numbers up, you realize that $59.7 billion market, so much of that is sitting at the top. So much of that is sitting at the top. But I do recall reading that there were some works that sold for about $6,000 and $7,000. So I want to get down to that. But before we get down to that, I do want to talk about how White Cube had a Tracy Emin that sold for $1.6 million. These are, look how much we can scroll up in these numbers, and we're seeing nothing but numbers over 100,000 up to 3.5, $3.8 million. So many different artworks sold within that range. And it's really important for us to know that. Now, I don't say that for us to, for us to say, okay, well, the middle market or the emerging market doesn't exist. No, that it totally exists. It's just know that more work, it's more concentrated in the emerging than it is on the top of the market. So these might be your top markers, but the emerging portion of this market, we do have to take into consideration that many, many, many artworks are selling at the emerging. Now, when you start talking about the middle market, that 50,000, 60,000, that's when things get a little bit, it gets a little tricky up in there because people are taking risk on the emerging side and they're confident at the top. So we have to think about how the collector is thinking. Why do we have to think about how the collector is thinking? Because if you take a look at this entire market, you look institutions, you take a look at galleries, you take a look at residencies and the exhibitions they have, you take a look at the artists, they're all going towards one person. That's the viewer, that's the collector. So the collector is so central to this market, and that's why we study the collector. We have to be students of the collector, because if we're not students of the collector, we're not students of the consumer. We have to be students of the people that are allowing this industry to continue, whether they're just looking, just viewing, just interested, or they're acquiring. We always have to take a look at what's selling and who it's selling to. So, if you guys want to take a deeper look at Art Basel Hong Kong, I really urge you guys to go to artsy.com. Artsy does a really great job at getting what sold. They always kind of get their hands on what sold first, either Artsy or Art News. Always really, really, really great indicators in telling us what sold at these fairs. Now, I want you guys, if you're going to Chicago next week, don't forget to stop by. What's the booth? Let's put the booth up again. Let's get the booth up again. Because I want you guys to make absolutely, positively sure you guys are going to go visit O'Neil Scott. Booth 416, Expo Chicago. Look, guys, also keep in mind, this Thursday at 10 a.m., Tanya Weddemire and I are having a conversation about many of the things that we talked about today. Not only are we going to spend some time talking a little bit more about O'Neil, but we're also going to talk a little bit about her experience traversing this industry and how she's been able to get into these fairs as such a young gallery. It's really, really difficult to go into these fairs and to be accepted into these fairs. We spent a little bit of time talking about what it means for an artist to be ready. And I do want to key in on the fact that Tanya Weddemire, she has to apply to these fairs. And these are heavily curated fairs. And these fairs have to say yes, right? And so when we're talking around the idea of being ready, not only does an artist have to be ready for the environments that they're willing and ready and wanting to step into, these galleries have to also be ready for the environments that they want to step into. And there are levels to these fairs. And so what I hope one day is to see Tanya Weddemire and Art Basel Hong Kong, and that's another aspiration. I don't know if that's her aspiration. That's not out of her mouth, but that's something I would love to see, right? That would be absolutely amazing. Let's see what's going on in the chat. All right, we have, what advice would you recommend for an artist to increase the market value of their work? That's a really great question. And I can answer that really easily because I think what it takes is balance. It takes really, really great balance. Understanding that your career does not exist in one space, especially if you're wanting to go this institutional route or this route, the route that we talk about a lot here on this channel. There are pillars, right? You have to build out all of your pillars, whether that's making sure you have an educational pillar, meaning if you didn't get your MFA or you didn't get your BFA, you are rooted in education at residencies, that you're showing on your CV that you are invested in learning, you are invested in researching your own work. That's one pillar. Another pillar is being signed and being represented by a strong gallery, having strong relationships with galleries, having strong solo shows, strong group shows. That's another pillar. Your fair market, that's another pillar. Your institutional, as far as your museums, having your work in museums, that's another pillar. So when you take a look at your CV, and guys, if you're interested in this, the conversation that we're having right now, I did an entire hour talking about how to approach strategically building your CV in Patreon. And so I want to urge you guys to go to Patreon and watch that. And it's really important that you guys do that because we talk about this in detail. We talk about how a gallery is looking at your CV, how a curator is looking at your CV, being aligned and having the pro trader, being aligned and having the right relationships, anchoring yourself in different pillars of the art world and having it be balanced. You don't want one side to be off balance and the other side to be off balance as well, right? And so if you are an artist and you have a ton of commercial success, but you have no museum success, that's an off balance career. That's off balance. So you want to spend some time figuring out how to get your work in museums if you have a completely strong commercial career. The reason why is because your work is going to start to lose value, or it's not going to go up in value because it's not rooted in nothing. It's not rooted in the residencies and that research. It's not rooted in the institutional validation. It's not rooted in the collectors saying, we love this work, we're willing to vouch for this work, we're willing to take the work that we have and loan it to museums. We're willing to take the work that we have and place it and donate it to museums. You have to be strong across the entire ecosystem. And I know that sounds like a lot, but if you're focused on that your entire career and you're focused on that balance your entire career, your work will go up in value. And not only will it go up in value based off of what you sold, but it will go up in value based in and based around the way you've anchored your work in different parts of this ecosystem. Awesome. Okay, guys, that is all I have for you guys today. We talked Chicago Expo, Expo Chicago. I'll be in Expo. I'll be at Expo. I'll only be there for a very short time. So I'm praying and hoping I get to see all the work. Guys, make sure, please make sure you guys are signing up for the Gloryland, on the Gloryland interest list. Gloryland is coming October 1st through the 3rd. Okay, I hope to see you guys in Houston. Last year we brought folks like Dr. Joy Simmons, we brought Aisha Selden, we brought Richard Beavers, and they came in and had conversations with the community, with the audience, like they were at dinner. And it was one of the most beautiful things that I was able to witness and see, that these folks came and gave all the knowledge that they acquired over years of them being within this industry and gave it so lovingly and so freely. So many people walked away with clarity, understanding what to do next. That is the purpose of Gloryland. We are constantly looking into the question, what does it take to be successful in the art world? And we're answering that question at Gloryland. So I hope to see you guys there. There's a link on the screen. There's a QR code. Guys, go ahead and scan that QR code with your phone. If you can't scan it with your phone because you're looking at it on your phone, screenshot it, then click on that QR code. It's going to bring you to our website where you can sign up for our early interest list. If you sign up for that list, you're one of the people that are going to get early bird tickets, you're going to get early bird merch, and all of the above. Thank y'all so much again for being here. Please always keep in mind that the glory is in the story. You can't have the glory without having the story.